Before becoming an SEO specialist as he is now, our next presenter was an infantryman in the Australian Defence Force. Quite a transition between that and SEO. But this combination of experiences has provided a different and unique insight into being visible on search engines. Although at the time he was training to go to war, Stuart learned many concepts which he has been able to apply to his work with search engines to great effect. One of those key concepts, which he'll probably share with you today, is the importance of the 1%, meaning that it's the small things that you do as a soldier that could make the difference between life and death. He's now the head of strategy for LocalSearch. That's an online directory that receives millions of page views every month, which small businesses rely on to capture new customers. He's been working in digital marketing for over 16 years and is a regular speaker at Google partner events across Australia. Please give a warm welcome to Stuart Brown.
Well, thanks very much for having me, guys. I'm going to try and deliver something to you a little bit different here, and obviously leveraging on a slightly left-of-centre background that's landed me. Never thought that I would come from a bit of experience in the military and end up spending my days in front of, computer screens and bar charts and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to jump right in and start off just telling you a little bit more of a background about myself. So I've been at LocalSearch for about 3 years, the head of search strategy down there, and so I'm really heavily focused on search engines, paid and unpaid, but primarily on the unpaid, the SEO side of things. And so prior to that, most people aren't aware that I spent a little bit of time in the military, working with the Army. That's a photo of me in 2006 as a happy young fella signing up in Victoria Barracks down in Melbourne, and I had some, grand dreams of deploying overseas and being a big hero and all that sort of good stuff. So I spent the next few years basically preparing to deploy to achieve that goal. So this is in the middle, that's me getting ready for pre-deployment training, feeling like a bit of a badass and pretty happy with myself at that point. And then this last one is actually during the pre-deployment training and actually realising that it was all a terrible decision and regretting all my last decisions and everything like that. But I mean, in all seriousness, I really did enjoy my time doing all that stuff, and obviously learnt a huge amount which I was able to then apply in my professional career after that, particularly with my work in search engines. So started at LocalSearch in about 2016. Why would you want to combine military tactics with an SEO campaign anyway? And I am going to talk primarily about SEO, but there's no reason why you can't apply what I'm going to describe to you to many different areas of your business as well, marketing or otherwise. Why would you want to do that? So let me paint the picture of the competitive landscape that we're in at the company. So as we're saying, localsearch.com.au, which is our sort of flagship, the online directory, receives page views in the millions every single month. And so you have tens of thousands of businesses which are our advertisers on the site, which depend on that traffic, which generates the leads that then makes their money that they use to grow their business and ultimately to feed their family. So there's a lot of people that rely on that traffic. And so any change, whether it be a big change or a small change, a positive one or a negative one, has the potential to have an impact on a really huge number of people. So it's quite a big responsibility. And our competitors as well, they're large and often very well resourced. They are highly motivated and aggressive, and they're quick to copy really just about anyone. They don't care. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Can you get a show of hands of anyone that's had a competitor copy their work? Yeah, heaps. Put your hand up, be brave if you've ever copied one of your competitors' work. Yeah, you have. Of course you have. I have. Absolutely. If you're doing SEO or anything like that, that's part of the game. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm not talking about plagiarising word-for-word content and stuff like that, but if I see someone outranking me for a particular keyword, I'm like, what's going on there? If they've got something good that they're doing, I might incorporate that into my strategy next month. That's all good. But it's kind of like a high-stakes poker game of the SEO world. That's how I think of it. And so if we want to win, we need to be smart, we need to be creative, and we need to be strategic. We can't be trying to fight all battles on all fronts every moment of every day. It's just not going to work. No one's got unlimited funds. What I do is I use a military mindset, which allows me to find more creative solutions to some of these problems. And I've got this picture of a burning boat. Now, has anyone in the room been to a Tony Robbins seminar? No, I'm the only weirdo? Okay. So, great. Oh, it's embarrassing. So I've been to a Tony Robbins seminar, and he often talks about references burning the boats. Does anyone recognise that reference? Yeah? Okay. So, burning the boats refers to, I think it's a 15th century invasion of a small Spanish force that invades Mexico. Basically, they're trying to take a whole bunch of gold and treasure. So they invade on a foreign land, and right before they're about to begin their assault, the commander or the general of the invading army yells at the troops and tells them to burn the boats that they arrived on. Burn all the boats. And he's basically signalling to the troops that there's no contingency here. There's no falling back to the boats and going back to the motherland or anything like that. You're going to fight this battle with every last bit that you've got, or you're going to die. So it's win or die. No second chances, no safety net. And that is kind of the mindset that I try to put myself in on a daily basis when we're tackling some of these difficult SEO problems within a highly competitive landscape. It's very easy to get into a frame of mind where you go, oh, we've got this problem, but it's just a little bit too hard, so maybe just shelve that project and move on to something that's a little bit easier. If I catch myself thinking like that, I have a little mental game that I play, and I go, you know what, Stuart? What if you absolutely had to succeed at this project, and if you didn't succeed, someone in your family got killed? What then? Do you think you could do it then? And I go, yeah, I reckon I could do it. I reckon I'd figure out a way to do it. That's the kind of the mindset that I try to put myself in to avoid that tendency to steer away from hard projects. And you find that when you can put yourself into that mindset, when success is really the only option, you tend to experience quite a lot more success. So today I'm going to deliver you 3 military concepts which are designed to overcome a highly motivated opponent. That's a little SEO joke. I don't know if anyone gets that, but I thought it was funny. So the 3 concepts are, the first one, I'm going to teach you a little bit about military mission planning. I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to gain and retain the initiative from an SEO standpoint. Now, I've used a little whack-a-mole graphic there. That's going to become a little bit clearer later on. And the third part is monitoring and deception, which I think is kind of the most entertaining one. So first up, let's learn how to plan an SEO project like it's a military operation. So I have sat through a lot of mission briefings, and I've delivered a few myself, and they all follow this acronym, SMEAC: Situation, Mission, Execution, Admin and Logistics, and Command and Signals. Now, I've kind of twisted this a little bit to suit the purposes of an SEO project, so I rely heavily on the first 3. We don't need to know the other 2 because they are really for military only. Situation, mission, and execution. So if you're going to do this, you're going to write up a little Word document and start off with these headings. We start off with situation friendly. So this is just a simple statement. What's the current situation that we're in right now? XYZ company is new to the market and attempting to attract organic traffic to generate leads. Pretty straightforward. The next part is the desired end state. So what is the situation that we want to find ourselves in once the project's completed? Again, another simple statement. XYZ company will attract 1,000 organic visitors per month. Pretty straightforward. And we're writing this document as though you would potentially share this with all the stakeholders, maybe the whole company. Whether or not you do that is up to you. Sometimes I write these and the only person that reads it is me. Sometimes I write it and there are multiple parties that will be exposed to this material. So we've got our starting point, our desired endpoint, and then we talk about the assets and resources. And we might say, okay, we've got a large content team, we've got strong industry relationships, maybe we've got an overseas developer team that we can use, whatever that might be. What are all the resources or the things that we could potentially bring to bear to solve this problem that we're about to lay out? And then I've got a literal example from a project that I wrote. We're going to talk about the wider strategic goals. So this is a first stage of a plan to double website traffic by October 5, 2018. So we know where we are now, where we want to be, what we've got at our disposal, and how this little project fits into the overall scheme of where the company wants to be heading long term. The next stage is situation enemy. Now, I talk about the enemy, we're talking about the competitors, but it's just easy for me to talk in terms of the enemy, because that's how I prefer to think about our competitors. We've got, again, the assets and resources. So they've got a Death Star and it can destroy a whole planet within 2 seconds. We might say something like, they've got a large development team, they're well-financed, and they've got a big YouTube channel. Okay, pretty straightforward. Then we get into the interesting stuff. We have the enemy's most likely course of action and the enemy's most dangerous course of action. And this is not made-up fairy tale stuff. We're going to write these two statements based on historically what we've learned and what we can find out from our own research. So the most likely course of action that the competitors might take in response to our project might be, okay, historically they've known to copy our work and the work of our competitors. And the most dangerous course of action, remember, we're basing this stuff on realistic reactions that we think they might have. We're not going to say the CEO is going to flip out and murder us all in our sleep. That's probably not realistic. So we might say, okay, based on our research and what we've experienced, in 2014 they filed a lawsuit against another company because they released a widget that they believed was a threat to their market dominance. Okay? So now we're starting to paint a picture of the competitors and what might happen once we release our project that we're working on. And the next part is probably the simplest, the mission statement. And it's a simple format: who, what, why, and when. So an example, XYZ company will release a thing, like say a piece of content or a widget or whatever it might be, in order to capture 1,000 organic visitors per month, no later than 5 p.m. Friday on the 3rd of May 2018. Now, the purpose of this is quite simply to allow anyone that's involved in this project to become crystal clear on the single objective of this project. So you're basically aligning all of your assets, all of your departments, or anyone that's involved, so that we're all pulling in the same direction, just like in the photo. Because often what happens with very large-scale complex projects in SEO, the lines get a little bit fuzzy. We're not sure when does it end and when we actually start measuring things. Sometimes things can get a little bit out of focus. So this can help keep everyone unified. And this is a real example. LocalSearch will release a new meta description format in order to improve click-through rate no later than February 24 this year. Okay? So this means that the developers, they know exactly when they have to implement what I've asked them to do. We know when we need to start measuring things and when it's going to be the exact date that it's going to be implemented on. And then we get to the last section, which is the execution. Who, what, where, and when, which is we're going to basically detail out what the different stakeholders are going to be doing in a little bit finer detail. So the content team will publish the article by this date. The marketing team is going to send the emails by this particular date. And sales will finish closing leads by this particular date, whatever it might be. And then so everyone knows, okay, in order to support this overall work effort, here's my little bit, and here's the exact date and time when it's due by. Now, the last part to the execution is when we sort of justify why we're doing things the way that we're doing it. So we need to now detail risk mitigation methods. So how does this project and the approach that we're going to take, how does it maximize our strengths and minimize our weaknesses? So you might say, okay, leveraging our large content team, we're going to release content at twice the rate and be twice as thorough. We'll also use our strong industry relationships to generate links and maximize rankings. Okay, cool. And how are we going to exploit the enemy's weakness and mitigate their strengths at the same time? Okay, even though ABC Industries are very slow to release content, their content's quite thin. This means we'll be perceived as the more responsive thought leaders. Okay, so we've got a plan. They're very big and well-resourced, but they're a little bit slow. So we're going to outmaneuver them. We're going to be more nimble and use that to our strength. The last part is we deal with the most likely and the most dangerous reactions for our competitors. So let's say the most likely, they copy our work because that's what they're known to do. Okay, cool. We will post their version on our social media. We'll highlight the date and the difference, and we'll ask our audience what they think of this alternate content, knowing full well that ours is going to be quite superior to theirs. We can just highlight that. So that's how we're going to kind of twist that. If they do decide to copy it, cool, we've got a move in store for that. We're going to deal with that. And the most dangerous course of action, they try to sue us like they did in 2014 to those other guys, right? No worries, we've located a legal precedent which demonstrates that our work doesn't infringe on their IP. And we can also demonstrate that our content was derived from original resources and our own data sources. So this way we've fully mapped out the start point, the end point, what we've got to play with, what the competition is likely to do, and if they do that, what we're going to do in response, so we cover ourselves. So Eisenhower said, plans are nothing, planning is everything. If you spend a little bit more time planning in this method, you're going to find that you're able to unify your assets along a single goal much more easily. You'll have much more defined beginnings and endings, and you can coordinate much more complex tasks in a really nice manner as well. So that's the first part done. Now let's talk about gaining and retaining the initiative, the old whack-a-mole graphic. Now, in the military, we talk about having the initiative in a battle, and what that means is we want the enemy to be basically responding to our actions rather than the other way around. We want to be the ones dictating the pace, the time, the location of any battles that we fight, not the other way around. The overall goal of having the initiative is basically to have the opponent off balance and kind of out of sync. And once we have them in that kind of a posture, we want to keep them that way forever, basically. So we're the ones dictating. So how do we do that? The easiest way to do that is to be different and be difficult to copy. Again, we're kind of finding ways to exploit the things that they're not very good at doing, right? That's the easiest way. So one way, we can do specific research that they are unlikely to do. We can use things like case studies. We can leverage our particular strategic partnerships that they don't have. We can create custom widgets if we think that they're unlikely to do that or they're not very good at doing that sort of stuff. Like we said before, if they're slow to release content, then let's release content more quickly and be seen as the thought leader. Let's release more in-depth content if theirs tends to be a little bit on the thin side. We can release more entertaining content if their stuff is typically a little dull and dry. Why don't we release video content if they tend to do a lot of text-heavy stuff? Let's just be different in that way as well. Let's solve a more specific problem if their content seems to be a little bit generic. And we can even do things like targeting keywords which they've overlooked or maybe they just don't care about. It's not as important to them. Maybe we can take advantage of that as well. We can go where they are not. And we can add bonus content to add value as well. Now, this is obviously not an exhaustive list, but the point is we want to figure out what are the things that they don't do or they don't like to do or they're not very good at. Maybe we can do those things. So once we have the initiative, we want to retain the initiative. If we get the opponent off balance, now we've got to keep them there, always. Let's be unpredictable. So by unpredictability, in the military, we talk about not getting into patterns. So let's not always release a 500-word article. Let's not always do video. Let's not always do infographics. From a military standpoint, we talk about let's not engage the enemy at the exact same time every day so they know if they're going to come for us, they're going to come at about 3 o'clock. Let's not leave the base to go on patrol through the exact same gate every single time. So we'll keep them guessing. There's never any kind of pattern, and after a while, the opponents just go, you know what, there is no pattern, so there's no point trying to predict it. And let's always add unique value and innovate for the user as well. And if you're going to be doing that, you want to have 2 to 3 more things ready to release, like locked and loaded, ready to go, before you ever publish the first thing. That's really important too, because sometimes people go, okay, great, I've got this really awesome thing, I'm going to release that out to the amazing piece of content, for example, and then the competitor goes, oh, cool, we're going to copy that, a month later, and they go, oh, now I've got to do something else, and I have to think of some new thing that I can release and try and outmaneuver the competitors again. So we want to have, if they come and copy you a month later, cool, no worries, I've got the next one ready to go. If they come up, that's all good, I've got the next one ready to go. If you maintain that, if you're going to be serious about maintaining that kind of a schedule, we need to have a roadmap for content, a roadmap for features, whatever it might be. So we're not going to run out of things and start to have to scramble and brainstorm to figure out the next widget or the next piece of content that we're going to do. That's mapped out for 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. For LocalSearch, the dev team, they've got a few years of features and whatnot ready to go. So when the next thing gets released, they're on working on the next thing. So we're always several steps ahead of what actually is being released out into the wild. And the final part, and probably what I find the most entertaining, is monitoring and deception of your competitors. Now, monitoring, people are probably a bit familiar with. Deception, most people will be a little bit unfamiliar with. Sun Tzu says, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And that's really the key here, really knowing what the competitors are doing. So spying has been used in wartime throughout history. It's certainly not a new thing, and it's certainly not new from a corporate perspective either. And so if we're talking about really monitoring and knowing the habits and movements of our competitors, here are some things that you're probably fairly familiar with and some that you may not have considered. We want to set up Google Alerts. That's a really basic one. Let's make sure that every time our competitors publish some new thing on their website and the search engines index it, bang, we're aware of it straight away. We're reading it as soon as it goes up. So we're fully up to speed. We can use Facebook's page monitoring features to monitor our closest competitors on Facebook and see, okay, is there something that they're releasing that is really resonating with a common audience? Okay, let's take a look at that. Why is it so popular? Is there something that we need to look at incorporating into our own strategy, or something that we can learn from that? And behaving as though we are one of their customers. So I'm really getting in there and pretending to be a customer, literally. So we're going to download their free guides. We're going to sign up for their trial accounts and see how that all works. We're going to interrogate their chatbots and see how they work and if they're good or if they suck or whatever it is. We want to subscribe to their newsletters. I recommend using fake emails when you do that as well, just so that they don't get potentially tipped off and start to, stop sending their email newsletters to you. Let's really not make them aware that we're watching. And we can use keyword tracking. I think this is one of the most important things from an SEO. I'm an SEO guy, obviously. I think this is important. Let's use keyword tracking, which monitors our performance for our keywords and our competitors' performance. I want to know where my competitors are ranking at any given time for the keywords that I care about, right? That's really important. Now, on to deception. Deception's the fun part for me. Now, World War II, there was some crazy deception going on. This is an inflatable tank that the Allies used, and they had hundreds of these things, and they were basically designed to deceive the German forces in a couple of different ways, to firstly make them believe that they had way more tanks than they actually did, and to downplay the importance of the Normandy beaches for that invasion. And Joseph Stalin was famous for releasing encoded messages that he knew that the Germans had already cracked, which lured them into their famous defeat in Stalingrad, where the German forces lost hundreds of thousands of men. It was an absolute crushing defeat, all through deception tactics. So, deception. How can we deceive our competitors? Let's start off by finding some key email addresses within our competitors' organisation using something like hunter.io. There's any number of different softwares that you can do to achieve this. This is just one. Next, maybe we can start sending them some fake newsletters about upcoming features which we're about to release. Wouldn't that be interesting? It's also not hard to imagine a scenario where you might leak an internal memo, like you went to send it to somebody, but you actually sent it to this other email address by accident. Where you leak an internal company memo that details future plans that maybe aren't quite accurate. Things like leaked strategy documents, financial projections, sales data, anything that you might think that the competitors might get their grubby hands on and go, oh, geez, look at this. This guy accidentally sent this to us and we'll keep that and use that to our advantage. Great. And if you really want to take it to another level, you could potentially consider creating fake landing pages with something like Unbounce or lead pages or your own CRM to reinforce what you're sending through with these fake newsletters. So that if they click the link to see the new features that you're releasing, you've got a whole page there. This is legit. I'm on their website now on a page that totally backs up what I've just read in this newsletter about some new stuff that they're doing. Just if you do that, obviously remember to no index, no follow those pages. We don't want that to pop up in search engines. Let's really make sure that only the people that we want to see this are actually seeing it, nobody else. Okay? So you can imagine the sting that might occur when you then go to release your next widget, piece of content, whatever it is, and your competitors, which you've been struggling because they're copying everything you do, then go, geez, not only did I not realize that they were about to release that, but we've been over here working on this thing, and it's just like, it's something totally different. That's going to hurt. And the way I like to think about this is, does anybody like playing pool? Pool, yeah? So when I first started playing pool, like everyone, you're just flat out trying to get the ball in the hole, right? That's all you want to do. But then when you start to get a little bit better, it's about getting your ball in the hole and then making sure that the white ball kind of obstructs the other player from taking their next shot. So you're achieving what you want to do and then making it harder simultaneously for your competitors to make their next move. That's what this is all about. Just something to think about. Again, not an exhaustive list, but when success is the only option, you do tend to explore some more creative possibilities to achieve that goal. So thanks very much for your attention, and welcome any questions that you got.